So the art of the possible. Effectively, this is one of my favourite sessions to run. So this is one that we use as a starting point for our staff members at Exeter College to jump in and learn as much as possible in as short a space of time as we can do around Office 365 and all the tools that are available to us within that. So one of the key things I want to go through with you this morning, or this afternoon I should say now, is a presentation around some of the key possibilities and some of the tools that we can use, and then also move on to a little bit of a demonstration as well afterwards. And we will leave some time as well at the end for questions and answers. Obviously, this is a Teams live event session, so please do post your questions in the Q&A section or in the chat, and we will come to those at the end. Or if we can do, we'll answer them as we go along. So my team member Rachel Hibbert is joining us as well today. She'll be in the background just picking out any questions that you might have, and then hopefully drawing on those that might need an answer towards the end of the session. So to kick start where we are, let me just go through and introduce myself. So my name is Anthony Martin, and I'm the Digital Innovations and Engagement Manager here at Exeter College. My role is an interesting one. It's really around driving technology and adoption of digital tools, and obviously helping us all navigate and survive the various lockdowns that we've been through. I'll put my Twitter details and handle on the screen so you can get in contact if you wish to. And the other thing I just sort of mentioned at this stage is please be aware that this session that we're offering, and all of these sessions in the series, are all part of our EdTech demonstrator program. So we would like you to engage with that and take part, and if you haven't already, to fill in one of the PID documents. This is a project initiation document, very short survey, but the answers you give and the support offers that we're able to give within that are tied together. And obviously in completing that, it does help us to continue to access the funding from DFE to be able to run these sessions. So it is really important. Please do take the time to complete it if you haven't already, a little bit later on. But Rachel and I will likely be in contact with you following the session just to see how this went and see if there are any other ways that we can help or assist you in your own efforts around lockdown and various adoption of tech tools. So let's kickstart then. This session is really aimed around CPD and that starting point, and it's really talking around this concept of you don't know what you don't know. So we look at that on the sense that many staff members you may well ask your teams, if they have proficiency in Excel, in PowerPoint, in Word, do they understand remote learning, for instance? It's very easy for us to say yes to that, but it's very difficult to actually quantify that. How do we know that someone knows all the features that we would like them to as part of any of those programs? So the aim of this session is purely to show you some of those things that you could do, and then allow you to build on that. It's very fast paced. There's an awful lot in the session, as you'll see on this next slide. So we're going to try and cover off a heck of a lot of content in a very short period of time. I can't guarantee your heads won't hurt, because I think sometimes they do at the end of this. And my main aim really is, if you go away from the session just picking up on one thing and wanting to come back and learn something more about it, that I think is my key aim, is that you latch onto any one of these things we talk about and maybe bring that back into your normal practices. So let's get started with the Microsoft Educator community. This is the first one I'd like to make you aware of, and this is one that should be part of your toolkit or your support program whenever you're looking at digital tools. This has been an absolute godsend for us. We are very heavily invested in this, and our staff members are very keen to promote themselves and get those badges through the program as well. I love the MEC. It's a great side of things for our showcase aspects and our relationship with Microsoft, and it's entirely free. This is hours and hours and hours of free training, hundreds of courses that are available to you around all of the Office products. And a lot of the training that I give is tiered off the back of this kind of program and exactly the badges that are available within here. So it's a digital badging platform. You can get to it by going to education.microsoft.com. So it's worth making a note of that, but we will share all this out with you later on. And also, by taking part in this session, you can actually claim a code at the end to redeem in the Educator Centre. And use that to count towards your progression routes in there towards effectively the Microsoft Innovative Educator status. So it's just worth mentioning that in brief. I'm a Microsoft Innovative Educator and also now a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. And there are further pathways then to trainer and fellow and beyond. This is a great part of the program. It really does inspire your colleagues to continue returning, to continue getting badges. It's gamified in the sense that it does create a little bit of competition between colleagues, which I really like to see personally. But it's also a recognition of the knowledge and the skills that you're picking up as you go. So I think it's a really important tool, certainly one you should be taking a look at. And if you haven't logged in, signed into it already, you can do so with your Office 365 account. And I think it's really worth doing. What we will do at the end of the session, as I say, is I will share a code with you so you can take advantage of the extra points that gets. And I think if any of you are coming along to our team session later on this afternoon, if you complete both this one and the other one, claim both codes, you will effectively have done enough training so far to have earned your certified MIE badge, partly because we cover so much content. So that's a worthy offer worth taking up, I think. Okay, so other things in this session, just to recap, what we're going to go through is some things on Office 365, including OneDrive, OneNote, Office Lens, Immersive Reader, PowerPoint, Sway, and I think what we might have to do is pause there and put forms and teams in perhaps for another session, because I think there's quite a lot of content there, and I do want to show you some of the demo aspects of Sway. So jumping in, Office 365. Some of these icons may well be familiar to you, many of them won't. I'm not going to go through in a lot of detail about what these are, but if you do want to find out a little bit more, then do feel free to get in touch and we can talk to you or set up a program around different training pieces on these apps. But it's split into three kind of key areas. One is the self-management. So it's around looking after your to-do, your daily habits, your interaction with the various other tools and documents you're working on. The one in the middle is probably the one we're most familiar with, and this is our productivity suite. So we should all be familiar, I think, by now with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook. And within there, we've also got Access, OneDrive now being quite a key part, and Publisher. And then on the right-hand side, we've got our collaboration tool. So this is something that has really kicked off since COVID 2019, and there's sort of various other collaboration requirements with Teams. So obviously we've got Teams, we've got SharePoint, we've got Forms, Stream for our video playback, so our in-house YouTube effectively. Clearly we have OneNote, but this in particular is about the OneNote class notebook. In addition to that, we have then Yammer as our corporate sort of chat system and Sway. So there's quite a lot in there, quite a lot to get your head around. And as I say, we can come back to those tools in separate sessions if needs be. So with that in mind, though, where on earth do you start? There's an awful lot there to get your head around. So I'm going to break it down to four key things. These are the four, I think, to get started in the Office 365 environment, or four of the kind of most useful tools. OneDrive, fundamentally, you have to start somewhere. Getting your files into OneDrive, if you haven't already, is going to help you along your way with Office 365 massively. If you don't have your files on OneDrive, you're going to find your experience, we've heard it described as a little bit clunky, a bit disjointed perhaps, and that is very true. I think the key is to get you working on the same platform and have your files in one place. The experience then is a lot more seamless. OneNote, this is an absolutely fantastic tool, and it's certainly one that's made its way in education a lot over the last few years. And then we have things around remote working and Office Lens then, so being able to capture evidence with a scanner at home. And then learning tools, which is all about empowering your learners with their own accessibility needs to be able to address those. So that's where we bring in things like Immersive Reader. So those four areas are where I'm going to focus a lot of my efforts today. Starting with OneDrive. Okay, so this is obviously the app version. This is what you can find on your mobile apps. And this is really around having all your files stored in one place. The great thing about it is you've got a terabyte of storage, certainly on the education setting, which is an awful lot of storage, a lot of files, a lot of video content as well. It gives you quick access to the things you need, where you need them, whenever you need them. And that's really important when we go back to the old way of working, or look at the old way of working where we were bound to maybe flash drives or removable hard drives, or even if you go back further, floppy disk drives. You know, those kind of approaches to carrying your data with you, I think are very much gone, and what OneDrive offers in the cloud is a much better way of working now. Lots of tools in here to show you what you've been working on recently. There's also a recycle bin and offline files. And one of the great things about OneDrive in particular is that everything is version controlled. So every time you make a change to your documents, that change is captured. So you can always go back to an older version. It overcomes some of these issues. So some of the things we've heard of are, I left my memory stick at home. Yep, that's quite a common one. But in teaching, I think we've all probably heard that those excuses for sort of not handling in homework or coursework, my dog, washing machine, or grizzly bear ate my coursework, those kind of comments and a mentality kind of disappear when you say, well, can you just go and get it out of your OneDrive? It should have been stored there. So it creates much less opportunity for excuse, I suppose, with lost data. And of course, we don't have this issue now of losing everything when your PC crashes, because it's being stored as you go in the cloud, and that's a really important part. So what it gives you: terabyte of space, saving automatically, files available anywhere, anytime. You can edit on the move with the mobile app, and of course, version control. And those are some of the key takeaways from OneDrive. So there's our first lesson, OneDrive, file storage, definitely worth starting there. Okay, I told you it was going to be quite fast paced, so apologies continue for any headaches that are caused by my session today. So OneNote then. Now, this one I put in there as the kind of examples that this resolves and helps us with. When we were working in classroom setting, it's really how do I stay on top of my notes? It's this idea that having to carry around 2-3 different notebooks, your project planners, your lever arch files as a teacher, moving between classrooms, perhaps with lots of content. We don't need to do that anymore because we can go paperless with Office 365 and OneNote. And of course, we've got that extra benefit being able to share our notes out, being able to use things like pen and ink on screen. So we can really make our notes actually stand out and become much more useful than perhaps they have before. So it's this idea, whether you believe it or not, of going paperless. You know, that's been something we've been promised for a very long time, and I think it's a good step in the right direction. So OneNote allows us to take those lever arch files and effectively turn them into our sort of digitized version. It takes the files themselves are actually the notebooks. The individual dividers between them are effectively the same as what we call OneNote sections. So it allows you to split your work down into lots of different subcategories or subsections. It allows us to go from obviously the paper-based thing to, on the right-hand side there, you'll see the Windows 10 app with OneNote in there. You can have multiple notebooks on the very far left-hand side, split into your dividers in all the various colors down the screen. And in each of those dividers, then you've got your content items, so each of the pages, and you can add these and take them away as you wish. You can, of course, also do all of this on a mobile phone as well. So using an app, you can still engage with all of these kind of things. So here we've got your to-do lists and assignments. We've got other content around your sort of notes and pages, and then being able to use inking notes as well. Capturing photo evidence, so you can do that directly through the app. You can also convert these documents and presentations straight into a PDF file. And you can embed things like voice notes and audio content straight into a OneNote slide as well. So some of the great things you can do with this are really powerful. The last one on this list, though, is one that our SENS teams in particular find really, really useful, is to be able to transcribe notes on there. So learners who are not very good at typing, who have difficulty maybe interacting with keyboards, can interact directly by using the built-in microphone and recording and having it transcribe and dictate out their notes directly into OneNote. And equally, if you're sharing something with your teacher, so teacher and student there, they can both interact with that content then really easily. And then, of course, we've got things where we can start creating really dynamic looking lessons and effectively digitized whiteboards, but in an app, using the inking tools within the apps as well. So that's my second takeaway, which is the OneNote. Again, really useful tool there. Next up, we have Office Lens. So I don't know really how many of you will know about this. It has been around for quite some time now, but it's been one of those apps that sits around quietly in the background. Loads of the functionality is actually embedded into OneNote now, but it is still available as a standalone app and is still really useful. What it is, basically, it turns your mobile phone into a scanner. But a little bit more than that, it allows you to scanning content from paper. It automatically straightens out your work and then allows you to then embed that into various other streams. So you can put it into a Word document, for instance, and convert the text that you're scanning back into Word. You can take it then straight into your sort of various other apps, or save it straight into OneDrive as a scanned document, or convert it into a picture. As you can see there, a few different things you can use it for. This is really good, I think, when you've got students who are spending a lot of time copying down a presentation. So this is probably less of an issue during lockdown, more of an issue when you're back in the classrooms. But students who are taking the time to write down all the notes as you talk through a presentation, why not instead, one, you could give out the presentation in the first place, but two, you could still encourage that by saying, look, you can use your mobile phones in the class for this. If you want to take a picture of what's appearing on screen, turn it to the whiteboard mode, hold the camera up, click the button, and you've captured everything. That way you don't have to wait until everybody has finished writing down the last word. You can kind of progress on and allow the notes to effectively take themselves as the learners progress through your session. It also, during the lockdown, gets over this issue about not having a scanner at home, or for apprentices who don't have those sort of scanning tools or copiers and so on at work, they can scan their evidence in using this app. And we've seen lots of examples where people may have deleted the original documents. How do you overcome that? Well, this way you can scan the original document with Office Lens and turn it back into an editable one again. And that is really powerful. So it gives us the opportunity to capture everything. And I think that is really cool. In terms of how it works, that just gives you a bit of a screenshot of one of the earlier versions of the app. But you can see there on a screen on the left-hand side, it puts an orange border around around what it's scanning. Shows you that it works with screen tech as well as printed documents. And again, what it will do when the orange border is around there, it will straighten everything up and then put it back on screen for you to edit. Next steps then, when you are going through that, you've scanned it in, these are the kind of options you have in front of you. So it will allow you to send it straight to your OneNote, which we've already looked at, to a specific notebook, and then to a specific section. So you can save it straight into your lesson and studies for that day. Really powerful, available on both iOS and Android. So if you haven't seen it before, do download it, have a look, have a play. I think you'll really see the benefits from that. Okay, so next on my list is Immersive Reader. This one I'm going to start off with a short video just to, one, break this up a little bit, but also to give you a little bit of insight around what this is. If you haven't seen it before, this is an incredibly powerful tool, and I think it's up for a number of design awards at the moment. So it really is very good and should be part of every teacher's repertoire if they're using Microsoft technologies. So let's take a quick look.
The true of education is to create possibility.
It was a little hard for me people laugh whenever I read sometimes. Well, they knew how to read, and I didn't. I will never be good at reading. I will probably be held back again. It highlights the words to know where I am. When it's reading, I see spaces between the words, and it's easy to focus on. The first time I actually could read that book, I was proud of myself. I was very proud of myself. Good job, Jeff.
When technology and education come together, possibility becomes reality.
I want to read every book in here.
Okay, I'm hoping that played out okay for everyone on the session today. I know sometimes there's difficulty with audio, so hopefully that came through. If it didn't, I've included the YouTube link on there as well to take a look at that. Really powerful little tool. Sorry, let's not play it again. And I'll show you that in a little bit more detail in a moment or two, because I think it's really important to have a look at that. So keep that in the back of your mind. What we do have with Immersive Reader in particular, let me just see if we can go back onto that one. We'll pause there for a second. Immersive Reader basically puts your learners back in control of this accessibility piece. So if you've digitized a document, they can control things like to have it read back to them, to increase the font size, to change the background colors, to handle sort of difficulties reading things on screen. So dyslexia, dyspraxia, those kind of things are assisted by this. It's also great for language barriers as well, where someone maybe English isn't their first language, or you have a differing language between you, because you can translate the document on the fly without you having to spend absolutely ages doing it. You can produce it in your native language and then have it shared and read back to the learner in their own language. Up to, I think it's 60 languages that are covered at the moment. So that is really, really powerful, and I will try and show you that very, very shortly. What I want to cover next is PowerPoint, and I'm going to try and skim through this because I'm very conscious of time on our session today, to make sure we have plenty of time for your questions. I'd like to get you guys to revisit, if I can, PowerPoint. So it's often that tool that gets looked on as, you know, this idea of death by PowerPoint. It's about giving presentations that are a little bit more inspiring, that aren't the traditional, you know, black text on white background, everything thrown on, lots of things all over the place, lots of different design standards. Yes, it's had a bad rep, but I think there's a lot of potential now with what PowerPoint has become and some of the things within it, if you haven't already found those over the last year. One of them is this idea of design ideas. So again, I'm hoping this one will play out okay for you. Do put any comments in the chat if you're having difficulty with hearing any of these.
Did you know that Designer in PowerPoint can help classroom projects look their best? Just go to the Design tab, select Design Ideas, and pick the style that makes your project shine.
So really short and sweet on that one, but effectively it's a really useful tool for the, let's skip over that, we're going to go, there we go. So this was actually designed from an accessibility point of view. It was designed by, I think, one of the developers in Microsoft to overcome or to allow presentations to be created by partially sighted users as well. So it means that they can still produce presentations without having to see the content on it. Using and navigating with the alternate text, as you can see on screen here, and searching sort of via the tools built into it. But for the rest of us, for everybody else, with that, it's an amazing tool to create some really vibrant looking presentations. Literally as simple as opening PowerPoint, starting as a new slide, adding some text and some pictures to it. And you can see I've literally added three pictures onto screen here, and I know there's a title under those pictures. And what it's created for me is a panel of sort of 9 or 10 different alternate ways of looking at that slide and inspiring ways of putting all those content pieces together. I could spend probably hours trying to crop and cut my pictures into circles to put a background on, then fade out the backgrounds, or I could just use design ideas, which basically lets me put a presentation together in about 20 minutes. So a lot of the stuff you've already seen today in what I've gone through is done via design ideas and is done via these tools that are built in. So have a look at that. It is a really, really powerful tool. And then moving on in our PowerPoint as well, there are a few things in here that I'm not going to dwell on and go through in too much detail, but it's worth having a look at this video I've got in the background around some of the other pieces that are possible here. So animation effects built into PowerPoint now with Morph tool and allowing the much more DVD menu style transition between slides. We've got animated graphics. We've got the ability to morph and move things around screen. So you'll see here the planets are moving. And all I've done is I've created the 9 planets as cut out pictures on screen and just move them between slides, and PowerPoint deals with the rest. So that is a really, really powerful tool in its own right. We've also, coming up in a second, got this ability to work with 3D objects now in our presentations. So there's a bank of lots of them available. This one is one on the Hubble telescope, and you can see we can literally morph around and move around a 3D object on our slides, and we can make our presentations look almost as good as a BBC production or documentary. Again, just by throwing things onto a slide and moving them. So it really is a very, very powerful tool now, and lots of great stuff you can do with it. And then, of course, one of the things you may well have encountered over the last year is this idea of recorder. So you can now record aspects in your PowerPoint presentation. And that's really, really important for our remote lessons and our pre-recorded content in particular. You can record screens and the output on your PC, or you can add a video lay over to your existing presentation as well. So I can create a shareable resource that's with me already recorded as a teacher on the sessions, and let my learners catch up with that in their own time. It means I can flip my classroom around now, and I can do much more kind of supportive and formative kind of lessons within the class, and actually engage and give more tailored support rather than just standing in front of everyone giving out a presentation. So some really powerful aspects there. I kind of look at it back to Jurassic Park's always my callback for this one. So it's the idea of having myself, and if I'd pre-recorded part of the content on here on slide, I could have myself standing next to myself on screen, and you could create some dynamic conversation between the two elements with a bit of pre-recorded content and a little bit of live wizardry and showmanship, I suppose. So you could use it for lots of different things like that, which gives some really interesting ways of delivering a session. But of course, with Flipped and with lecture capture, it's this idea of being able to use that content then multiple times. You record it once and you can deliver it as many times as you need to. Your students can then use it for revision, and they can also use it for live catch up if they weren't able to make the session originally. All right, so we're still on PowerPoint at the moment. This is probably my most favorite tool at the moment with the things that you can do with it. And I just want to share some other things you can use PowerPoint for that you might not have thought of. Here we have being able to create posters. So just by flipping the orientation of my presentations around, I can turn them into basically poster design or graphic design tools. And really easy to just throw objects on page, remove backgrounds, add some very vibrant coloring, and just create a really easy to use canvas. To prove that is real, we actually now do, from an innovations point of view in the college, we now do every single one of our posters is done within PowerPoint, just to show how powerful a tool that is. And some of my other learners in the past have also used this for wireframes and mock-ups, and using it to create 10 different variants perhaps of a website design. And then they send that on to their clients and say, which one of these 10 do you prefer? and then the design to that. So it allows them to use something where they haven't got specialist wireframing tools available to them. So that's a really, really great way of using a tool that's been in our kit bag for 20 something years. Okay, sticking with PowerPoint, next up, this is very new, out sort of, I think mid last year. It's called PowerPoint Coach, and this is available in the web version of PowerPoint, not the desktop version at the moment. And it is really, really powerful. So if you yourself struggle with live presentations, or you struggle with PowerPoints and you want to get the most out of them, this could be for you. But also think about your students and your learners, where they have their own difficulties, they have confidence issues with getting started with PowerPoint. This trains them and teaches them to work with their PowerPoint, and it kind of watches you as you go and gives a lot of analysis about how you're doing your presentation. So here's an example of one of my presentations, just rehearsing. It comes back to you and talks to you about how long did you take to do your presentation, so it gives you an idea about timing. It also looks at originality, so do I go through my presentation and read out every word on it, because that might not be the most interesting way of doing it, so it guides you in that. It will also look at your pace as well. So it looks at whether you're delivering your session too quickly. And again, hands up, I will apologize in advance because I know there's a lot of content in the session and we are probably going very quickly through it. But hopefully persevering will give you some useful insights and everything. But it allows me to keep my pace right and just check how many words a minute am I talking at. It also looks at my consistency and pace. Am I jumping between talking really quickly or talking really slowly? What about the pitch? Am I talking with a little bit of interest in my voice, or am I talking in a really flat, monotonous way that people don't really want to engage with? It gives you an analysis of that as well. And then probably important for some, but not necessarily everyone, is this sensitive phrases aspect as well. It listens to what you're saying and will guide you if you are maybe adding in language into your presentation that you probably didn't ought to. So is there any swearing, or is there any colourful language in there that perhaps shouldn't be in a professional environment? And it will give you tips to avoid that. The other thing it's very good at doing is monitoring your ums and your ahs. So if you're very good at adding ums and ahs into your presentations, it will advise you if you're doing it. And as you rehearse, it will allow you to see that in real time. So it will prompt you with a little notification in the bottom corner of your screen while you're giving your practice presentation, and try and stop you from doing it. So really powerful. If you learned nothing else today, that's another one to go and have a look at. It is in PowerPoint and it's in the online version. Okay, now the last one I'm going to try and cover very briefly here is Sway, and then we're going to jump into the last part of the session, which is the demo on that. So Sway, just to give a very brief insight, if you haven't used it already, it's a tool that many haven't really known what to do with. But in a lockdown situation, in a remote learning situation, this has become really, really powerful. So Sway is both a newsletter for you to share out with, from a marketing point of view, share with parents, share with other tutors or other teachers in your school. It's also a way of putting together a lesson plan, something you can follow that can become interactive then, and you can share with your learners. You can create one as a study guide, but this idea of then creating digital handouts or further research aids is actually quite handy as well. So I'm going to pause at that point with a little bit of insight about what it is. And I'm going to go to a document that I've got on screen. So hopefully, if this will work, I'm going to minimize out of that one and come back to my Word document. So hopefully that's displaying on screen at the right time for everyone. So to show a little bit of the Sway stuff, before I come on to some of the last kind of quick wins from Office, this is a document that I've been creating. It's actually the document version of lots of the PowerPoints that I've given before. So some of the presentations I've given, I've just copied out content again and put it into a document. Traditionally, this would be my maybe a handout, something I'd give out to everybody as sort of an addition to my lesson. But what I'm going to do is very quickly convert it into a Sway document. So it's made up of lots of things, and we'll look at the content of it in a minute. We'll do the fun bit first, and we'll come back and look at how you put it together. So to convert it, really, really easy. You've got your Word document, go to File, go down to Transform, and it will come up with this transform to a web page workflow for you on the right-hand side. Now it gives you some ideas about styling, so you can have a look, and these are the built-in themes from Sway. And it gives you a little bit of a preview about what it's going to look like when you put that together. One thing I would say about Sway is, from a designer's point of view, it can be a little bit frustrating because you're always fighting it and always want to make it look that little bit different. If, however, from a teacher's point of view, you just want to throw something together really quickly to have a really good looking guide with minimal effort, then you can do that by using the built-in themes and tools. So you'll get the most out of it if you don't try and fight it, is my message from here. So let's pick this one. We'll go with this theme. Okay, so you can see the preview of what it's going to look like in the corner there, and then I'm going to hit transform. And what it will do is it's taking my document, it's going to upload it to Office 365, and it's going to create a Sway, and I'll bring that onto screen now so you can see it. So working in the background. There we go. So what are we talking about? 30 seconds. It's taken my Word document. It's brought all of the slides over. It's brought the content over. It's created links in the document if there are any. And it's created actually a pretty decent looking digital handout that I can then send out and share with my learners. So I've now created a digital version of that document. If anything, I change anything later on, I can really quickly come back to it and make any edits, knowing that whoever I've already shared it to, so if I can share through the share link, anyone who's got this in the groups that I've specified will always see the up-to-date version of what I've got. But if you think about how powerful that could be, you can now not only have written content, but you can embed into here your videos. So from a lesson planning point of view, you could have a video here instead of this flipped classroom image linking onto YouTube, or you could have 10 videos if you have a whole bank of things you'd like them to watch before they come along to your lesson. And then right at the end of the document, you can have a stretch goals or additional learning, additional research parts you share out with your learners as well. So there's a lot of powerful stuff you can do with Sway. As I say, it's not for me today to go through exactly how to do all of it, but I just want to share some of those key sort of things that you can do. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to go back to my document here, and I'm very happy to share any of these resources out with you. You just need to ask. The last thing I want to go through is knowing that this document has lots of different content items in it. I would like to share it as a to show you what the immersive reader is capable of doing as well. So if I go through to my Office 365 page I've already got open off screen, I'm going to bring this one up to show you on screen here. Sorry, bear with me. We will get there, I promise. Okay. So I think we can probably agree that is an online version of the document we've just looked at. It's loading up in a web browser. And this is the immersive reader thing I really want to show you in here. Within this aspect, so if I go to view and then turn on immersive reader. So we're talking back to that element we were looking at earlier on. It might take a minute or two for it to just render everything. So if you haven't seen this before, I'm going to be quite surprised if you're not impressed by what you see here. So this has taken the document. So if you imagine I've shared that out with my learners, I haven't had to do anything to this to make it work in this way. I've just said, open it and click on view immersive reader. It's gone through and it's separated out the various different types of words, so adjectives, verbs, nouns, and so on within there. And I've got a control panel to show what that is. So as a learner, as an end user, I can increase and decrease the font size to make it easier to use or easier to read. I can add increased spacing or reduce the spacing between document wording. I can change the fonts to make it easier to read depending on my preferences. And again, I can change the color of the background to look at the contrast and make it easier for me to use. In addition to that, we've also got some grammar control as well within here. So I can turn on and off the syllables. So early years, perhaps if you're looking at pronunciation, you can adjust that to make it easier to follow by breaking apart your words. You can turn on or off the coloring for the various parts of speech if you wish to. So you can see how it differentiates there. Let's add it all back on there. And then finally, reading preferences. This is really powerful. If you struggle with focus on screen and sort of where there's a lot of information, you can turn on line focus. So you can really strip that down into a nice, easy to use, and use the up and down arrow on your keyboard to then move word by word or line by line on that. So you can very easily make reading a bit more of a joy for those who struggle. Additionally to that, you can show a whole sentence or a whole paragraph at a time, so you can customize it to the way that you need. Again, for early years or from an understanding point of view, and also with additional languages, you can turn on Picture Dictionary. So what this will do is it will look at the wording in your document. So if we do that, I'm going to zoom out on it to show you a few more words on screen. Okay, and as we go through, I can look at exploring, for instance, and as I click on a word, it will give me a picture version of that meaning and also allow it to be spoken out to me as well. That's really, really powerful. So if I want to see what quiz is, for instance, I can get some idea of this. If there's a word I'm struggling with, then I can split it out and I can view it through here. Additionally, then, I can also translate a document into various languages. Now, there are regional dialects for these as well now. So I think English has been added in Australian, Canadian, and Irish as well. So you can now see the translation in another language, but it is an instant translation into that other language. So I don't need to do anything as a tutor to do this. My learners can do this themselves. And hopefully in the background that is going away and thinking about the translation and doing it. And you've got the choice of whether you translate by word or document. So word is obviously going to be very literal, and document is going to use AI to try and make it make more sense, ultimately. Let's turn off that, bear with me, turn off the line focus. So there we can see, I must admit, I would have no hope of being able to translate this back from this directly, but you can jump between the original and the translated version. And the final point on Immersive Reader here is you can also have it play back.
Assignments. Flipgrid of Kahoot challenges as some examples. Flip Week research.
Okay, so I can have it spoken back, but also in my native language.
Заглавие и заглавие, за да направите документите си достъпни и лесни за навигация, плюс приятно и.
I'm hoping that audio played out for you just then, but it does mean that you can see and hear everything in that translation piece. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that is everything that I think we can probably realistically fit in today. I'm going to go on to and just share the last sort of slide with you back on here again, and we're going to skip over the forms part. So I'm sorry to have to skip on these parts for you, but I'm very happy to sort of look at those as another session in the future with anyone who wants to go through any of this with us.
To use the equation features, click on.
Sorry about this. And I just want to move on to the last two parts. Really are the takeaways, which I'm going to come on to. So the takeaways from my point of view are, start with OneDrive. If you haven't already done that, do. Look at joining the Microsoft Educator community, get yourself some points and learn some amazing new skills about all of these tools and techniques. Get yourself on board with OneNote. Get rid of some of the paper from your lives and go digital. You will be thankful for it, I think, in the end. And then look at using the tools that you already have access to in a different way. Perhaps flip the classroom with things like Sway, or learn a few new tricks, I should say, with PowerPoint and get some great advantages out of there. And then finally have a look at things like the extra tools that support all of this, like Office Lens as well. So my last thing is really to say thank you all very, very much for taking part. I appreciate it is an awful lot of stuff to go through today. My details are back up on screen there, as you can see at the moment. And you can see on screen also next to the losing words for it, the hat sort of there alongside on the badge. That is your code to use in the Microsoft community if you want to claim the points for today's session. So please take advantage of that if you wish to. And also just a reiteration about the program we're doing, if you haven't already, as part of this, and you're in a school or college setting, please fill in that request for support and that PID document through there. There's a link provided on screen. We would really appreciate any sort of feedback and participation you can do through that, as that is what keeps these sessions possible. And I'm just going to hand over now to see if there are any questions or comments coming from the chat. So let's take a look through.
Yeah, we do have one question, Anthony. When you were converting the Word document to Sway, someone said that they don't have the transform function. And is it Microsoft Word an online version, or is it the app?
So it should be possible in the desktop version. So that's the one I've been using, but it may depend on which release has been put out across your institution. If you're finding it's not there, it sounds to me like you might be on a slightly older version of the release. Though I would say anything released in the last year should have that function there. If you're struggling with it and it's not there, you can also do it through the web as well. So if you open that same document in the web, you'll have the ability to transform it into a Sway from there as well. The other way you can do it is by going into the Sway directly, or into Sway directly. You can then import the documents really easily in kind of the reverse way, but it's also just as simple. It's a case of going to Sway, creating a new one, create a new one from a document, and then just tell it which document you want to point it to, and that's that one all sorted out. And I think that's all the questions we've got lined up, but I'm very conscious there is a little bit of a lag on live events, so I'll hang around for a few minutes and just see if anyone else has anything they'd like to go through at all.
Jane has said no questions, but just a thank you for a really useful session.
Thank you, Jane. You're more than welcome. I hope it hasn't hurt too many people's heads too much, because there is a lot in there. I appreciate that. But thanks very much for coming along, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.